All right, so we can now call the November 22nd, 2022. Wow, yeah, it's kind of a nice date, 112222. And to call that meeting, our meeting to order, we can have roll call, please.
Director Daniels,
I'm here.
Vice President Christensen,
Here.
Director Jaffe,
Here.
Director Lather. Director Lather.
You're muted.
Oh, I see her, but
You're muted, Rochelle.
Somebody muted me.
Okay.
Here.
thank you. President LaHue.
I am here. All right, and then we are going to go to closed session. Are there any public comments on closed session? Looking
We
around.
currently do not have any public members in attendance.
Okay, I'm just checking. Yeah, okay.
Nick, could you send me the entry to the closed session? I don't think I have that.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, then, being no comments, then we will go to closed session and be back here at 6:30. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
Of
Take
course.
this opportunity to introduce all of the board to Nick. And he's our interim O&M manager, and we're really excited to have him in there. His not only his technical skills, but his people skills are extraordinary. And so just wanted you to recognize his face. I'm sure you've heard the name and whatnot. So welcome and thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Welcome. And welcome. And then do we have Carly yet? There she is.
Yeah.
We're all here.
I wanted to welcome our newly elected board members. It is wonderful to see your faces there.
Thank you.
Thank
you much.
So we now have no public hearings tonight. Are there any items any board members wish to remove from consent?
Don't we need to have public comment on that?
I will have public comment on the consent agenda, but the first item is whether anyone wants to remove anything.
Nothing for me.
Okay.
I'll just chime in. I don't want to pull anything, but I want to explain. We had a request from the public from a public member to pull item 4.10, and I had looked at that item. It was the request. It was the presentation of the request for proposals, and the exhibits that were questioned by the letter writer were pages that were mere examples of what a proposer for this project would complete. It didn't contain any material that we were going to provide. So I think it was a simple misunderstanding, and I didn't see a need to pull that item, but I thought I'd just say that up front.
Agreed. No, that's good idea, Carla.
Okay, so I don't have any items either.
Okay, agreed. Rochelle or Bruce Jaffe, anything?
No.
Okay. And Bruce, guess not. I'm looking for a sign. I don't see a hand up or anything.
He's
Okay.
there.
Yep.
He's muted.
Yeah.
I probably should be.
No. Okay.
I don't know how to mute myself on my.
All right.
That's pretty clear.
Okay. Well, then, now then there would be an opportunity for any public comment on the consent agenda in general. If we have any hands up, I'm looking. Don't see any hands. Emma, you don't see any either, correct?
I do not.
Okay. Then we can entertain a motion on that.
So moved.
I'll second.
All right. Roll call, please.
Director Daniels,
Yes.
Vice President Christensen,
Yes.
Director Jaffe,
Yes.
Director Lather,
Yes.
and President LaHue.
Yes, thank you. So next we have an opportunity for oral and oral communications on items that are not on tonight's agenda. So it looks like we have a hand up there. So,
Ms. Steinbruner, your mic is available.
Hello, this is Becky Steinbruner. Can you hear me?
yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Good evening. I wanted to bring you information that I learned by looking at the November 15th Santa Cruz County Board of Supervisors list of written correspondence on the November 15th meeting agenda. At the very end, you can click on that on the website and read the content of the written correspondence that the board has received. Of interest, I thought, was item number V as in Victor. It's a letter from Mr. Rick Rogers from NOAA, informing the county that we need to consider amending the well permitting ordinance for this county, because there are instances, right now it's ministerial, and there are instances that NOAA has determined that there are relations between pumping well groundwater and stream flow levels. That was a big piece in the Mid-County Groundwater Agency Groundwater Sustainability Plan, and received a lot of comment in the draft phase about that. So what's happening now, I called Mr. Rogers and we talked a bit, and you may want to be aware that there is a move now to relate areas where there is shallow groundwater that is connected with stream flows, and to have those areas receive discretionary review for well permitting. That would affect any of your production wells along Soquel Creek. I know I have heard in some of the tours the Main Street well is very connected to the creek, but maybe others that you have in mind down the way, the one on Aptos Creek. So Sonoma County essentially is forging ahead and creating a template for other counties to create a discretionary permit review level for
30
wells.
seconds.
Thank you. For wells that are connected to stream flow. They've had one policy working group. Those are open to the public. They're very interesting. I also want to bring publicly your December 1st virtual hearing for the engineering report. I really wish there would be more press about this, because it is an incredibly critical document, and it is the public's last opportunity to comment on the Pure Water Soquel project.
Thank you, Ms.
So,
Steinbruner. Your time is up.
Okay. Anybody else? Any board members on any items not on tonight's agenda?
Well, the thing that was just mentioned was really about new well permitting. It didn't seem to talk anything about all the existing wells. So, and it is a county issue, not our issue.
Okay, but okay.
I'd like to thank the person for bringing it up to our notice.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's good. We always want to make sure we're not affecting stream flows, and I think we have done some evaluations on Soquel Creek and the Main Street well, and not something we want to ever ignore.
Yeah, Tom, I agree. We've paid very close attention to the connections and done studies. So it's not. I think it was misrepresented by the public comment on, in that we have paid very close attention to this and have looked for relations between the pumping and the water levels.
Not only have we paid attention to it, the MGA has paid great attention to it in their design. and report.
And President Hugh, I apologize. This is kind of turning into a little bit of a discussion item, and it was raised in public comment. And so we could certainly agendize it in the future if you'd like, but
Yeah, we're good.
yeah, thank you.
Okay. Any other comments from board members about anything they want to add? Okay. Well, then we will go right to the district council oral report.
Thank you. I actually don't have a report this evening, but I did want to note for the record that there was no reportable action at a closed session.
Oh, yeah. Sorry
Thank
about
you.
that. Yep. And then I guess there's nothing new on the having meetings in person or not. I mean, it looks like the emergency declaration is going to end in end of February, correct?
That's correct, President Hugh. Unfortunately, there is no new news. Based on current projections, the declaration of emergency will end at the end of February, which means that we will be back to the normal rules in March. The only exception for calling in from a private location would be if you could satisfy the just cause or emergency standards that are in those bills. And as we get a little bit closer to that timeline, we'll be providing much more information about the requirements so everyone's aware and up to speed. And I know Emma, feel free to jump in, has been working, looking at transitioning back to in-person meetings.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it seemed like prior to all of this, if somebody was, out of town in another country, they would still be able to call in. So I don't know if that will change or not.
That will not change. We still be able to do that. The only issue will be, you will need to put your meeting location on the agenda and to have that location be public and post the agenda there unless you can satisfy the just cause or emergency requirements. And generally those are if someone is ill or you have a travel that's related to the district.
Okay.
So we understand if the travel is personal or business, that doesn't qualify. So you can't call in that case.
That's correct, Director Daniels. You would be able to call in. You would just have to make that meeting location a public location. So as an example, if you were calling in from a vacation, your hotel room on vacation would need to be a public meeting location and listed on the agenda. By contrast, if you were calling in from your hotel room while attending the Aqua conference, that would satisfy the bill and you would not be a public location.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Great. Thanks, Josh. All right. So we will go to administrative business. We have no conditional or unconditional will serve. So we'll go with the ordinance establishing procedures for appeals of administrative citations and decisions.
That would be me. Good evening, everyone.
All right. Thanks.
As you know, we've been working with the board over the last year to modernize district ordinances and update them. And for your consideration tonight, we're proposing a new blanket ordinance, number 2204, that would establish procedures for appeals of administrative citations and decisions. Examples of administrative citations include fines for things like unrepaired or unaddressed water waste violations, water theft, and meter tampering. By law, any person receiving an administrative citation or decision has a right to appeal. One thing we noticed is that that's not consistently spelled out in all of our district ordinances where it needs to be. And so we're really proposing this single blanket appeals ordinance to kind of unify that right that customers have. The ordinance would also help clarify the process for both staff and customers in a single location. The ordinance itself was drafted by our legal counsel, Josh. Thank you for your help with this, and input from customer service operations, Leslie, and myself and my staff. So that's really the background on the reason for the ordinance. Possible board actions tonight include adopting it as is, adopting it with suggested changes, or asking us to go and make more bigger changes and bring it back at a subsequent meeting if that was desired. So with that, if there are any questions.
All right. We'll see if there's any public comment first. And it looks like there is. So Ms. Steinbrenner, you have the floor.
Ms. Steinbrenner, your mic is available.
Thank you. This is Becky Steinbrenner. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm really glad to see this coming before your board because I think it's been difficult for people who have received citations and things to really understand what the process is. So I would like to know, I didn't see, help me if I missed it, didn't see any definitions. I would like a definition of the hearing officer on item 1.1.5, appeals of administrative citation. It says that the appeals shall be heard by the board acting as the hearing officer, or the board may appoint a hearing officer to hear the appeal on its behalf. So I would like to know if the board appoints a hearing officer, who would that be? Would it what staff position would it be? Because at this point it seems like it would have already gone through the general manager, which everything seems to get initially funneled to, and that makes sense. But if that is not successful, or the person wants more chance to appeal,
30
who would
seconds.
the hearing officer be? I also request that all notifications be sent to the person via certified letter with a return receipt postcard, because I am familiar with someone who was recently cited. She never got a notification. Her water was turned off, and she had to pay a big penalty to get it turned back on and do some backflow testing that she
Thank
never
you,
got
Steinbrenner.
notice
Your
that she
time
needed
is
to
up.
do.
Okay. Any other public comment? Seeing none. Board
I would
members,
say, given the language here, the board could appoint anyone. It could be our Josh Nelson, our board's attorney, or we could have a completely separate attorney do it, or a judge who's retired, or all kinds of people could be.
It would probably depend on the appeal.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'd be happy to chime in on that one. Yeah, so that's absolutely right, Director Daniels. It's drafted to be as flexible as possible, just to make sure the board has the ability to kind of find the right person for the right situation. But there are under the Constitution some due process considerations, and so it generally has to be someone who isn't directly involved in the enforcement process. So it's unlikely it would be staff, and it would be me, because normally I help staff with these situations. What many agencies will do is work with a neighboring general manager to sit in on these, or a separate attorney who's familiar with conducting these hearings, those sorts of situations. But it isn't a position we need to fill unless we get an appeal, and then we would bring it to the board for your direction.
okay.
I had a question, a similar thing about the actual hearing. Would it be considered a public hearing, or is that?
Yeah, it's a really good question, Director Christensen. It will depend on who is acting as the hearing officer. So if the board is acting as the hearing officer, then yes, it would be during an agendized regular meeting as a public hearing, or we could call a special meeting to do it, and it would be a Brown Act meeting open to the public. For that reason, a lot of agencies won't have the board do it, just to give a little privacy to the appellant. And if it's conducted by a third-party hearing officer, that's not a public meeting, and only staff and the appellant would be in attendance.
Okay. Thank you. I was a little concerned about that.
Yeah.
And I had another question for Shelley, and that is, how many of these incidences have come through our district? Like, do you have a tally of those in the last couple of years?
We've had very few administrative citations issued, probably, and they've all been in the last 3 months, so I think 2.
Mhm.
And one of those was for water theft. One of them was for
Damage to equipment.
damage to equipment.
And
Tampering.
would those be covered under civil law, like with police or anything?
Josh, you're better addressed to answer that
Yeah,
one.
it's so this actually falls in one of those areas where all of the above. So there are criminal avenues we can go down, but we know that public safety officials are very busy, and so sometimes that's not the most appropriate way to move it forward. So what this is an alternative way where we could impose fines for those who are in violation of the ordinance. So they're sort of parallel tracks.
Okay, because it just seems kind of serious. Someone stealing water is still.
Yeah, and I'll just add for unrepaired water waste violations and things of that nature, we would only issue a fine in cases where people have been notified multiple times. They've gone through our enforcement process under our water waste ordinance, and they've still failed to do what they need to do. So it's really a last resort.
Okay, yeah. Well, it sounds like you've got a really good handle on it, actually. I was curious. So.
Okay, anything from Rochelle? Questions or?
No, I've worked on these kind of ordinances, so it looked pretty good to me.
Okay, and Bruce Jaffe or Bruce Daniel?
I'm fine.
Okay. All righty, so we can, if there's no questions, then we would probably entertain a motion.
I would make motion number 1.
I'll second it.
All right, moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Director Daniels,
Yes.
Vice President Christensen,
Yes.
Director Jaffe,
I've been having technical difficulties this meeting, but yes.
Director Lather,
You're not alone on the technical difficulties. Yes.
and President LaHue.
Yes. Okay, excellent. Thank you for your good work, Shelley.
Thanks, Josh.
And Alyssa probably was in on this too, I'm guessing.
He was, and Leslie. And
Okay. All right, so now the item 7.3 is district director's compensation.
Good evening, President LaHue, board members. This is Tracy Hart, Human Resources Manager, and I'm presenting to you tonight the annual review and consideration for compensation adjustment for district directors. As you know, our the director's compensation is governed by ordinance, district ordinance number 20-01. And on an annual basis, you have an opportunity to make an adjustment to compensation for board members. I've included in my memo the current board member compensation, as you can see on the screen right now, as well as some background information, including the ordinance itself and the history of directors' annual compensation adjustments. If you take a look at attachment 2, you can see a long list of annual adjustments or no adjustments made going back to 1992. And we do follow, the ordinance does follow the California Water Code in terms of the maximum adjustments that can be made to district compensation for special districts, water districts in the state of California. And so before you tonight, you have the opportunity to make any type of adjustments that you see fit. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have in regards to the information provided in the memo.
Okay, is there any public comment on this item? I don't see any hands. Oh, wait, there's a hand. Just popped up.
Ms. Steinbrenner, your mic is available.
Thank you. This is Becky Steinbruner. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I have a question about attachment 2, 119 of your packet. The table shows the history of the compensation adjustments. There's some question marks at the bottom, and I wonder if you could fill in those question marks for us tonight for the public.
The question marks are there because the board has not made a determination whether adjustments have been made for yet for the 22-23. So that will be determined based upon whatever motion the board makes tonight.
Okay, thank you. So then in the other, above that where there's a dash, there was no increase made? Is that how
Correct.
I'm reading that?
That's correct. Everywhere there's a dash, there was no change made.
Thank you. And the medical benefits, are those for life or only while you serve on the board? And are they extended to family members? I guess I'll just hope that you answer my question.
Any other comment?
Please clarify the medical term of benefit and if it is transferable to family members.
Okay. Thank you.
That is the next item. That's the next item, actually.
So Tracy, if you want to answer that, that's fine. It's only for the term that people are serving is the main question. So there's no benefits for life for either the board members or their family. Only during the term they serve.
That's correct.
Not like being in Congress.
Or the board of supervisors.
Okay, so now it comes back to the board. So any thoughts? We can just go through everybody. We can start with you, Rochelle. Any thoughts?
Sorry, somebody spam. Oh, it's not, but I'm not in this for money, so I don't have an opinion other
Okay.
than that.
Yeah, well, I think we can safely say that's not why any of us are here.
Right.
So well, I guess I'll just leave it open for anybody who wants to make a comment.
Oh, well, the only, I think I proposed the last time, and I'm not necessarily doing that now, but I wanted to open it up to the idea that as the 5 of us are probably going to be evolving slowly out of, moving on this one, if we, it might be an attractive thing to a possible new board member to have a higher rate. That's just might be something that might make it more attractive. Compensation to somebody who we might want to have on board. And that's
Okay.
that doesn't have to be acted on at all right now, but I really want people to think about that.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else? Bruce?
That's a good point, Carla, but I don't know what would make it more attractive in terms, would $100 a meeting make more attractive? I guess it would a bit, but I second what Rochelle said and Tom said, is that we're doing this as public service, and it's nice to be able to tell my family when I'm going through the board packet or at the meeting that, getting a little something for it. So but I'm happy with the way things are, and I don't think an increase is necessary at this time.
Okay.
I agree with that myself. We all are doing this as a volunteer thing. But I was going to say that not just the time I spent reading the packet and coming to meetings and studying and all that, studying water issues and reading up on those and climate change issues that are relevant and all that. I'm probably not even getting minimum wage. So, the state probably should step in on that. Anyway, I'm
Yes.
happy.
Yeah. Reminds me of being a teacher.
Right.
So I think if we just take no action, that would pretty much leave it where it is. Correct?
Correct.
That's correct.
Okay. So unless anybody has a motion, I think we're okay to move on.
I move we take no action.
All right. So, and then that is it for tonight. We will move to adjournment, and our next meeting, let's see, December 6th? No, what's the date?
6th.
6th, okay.
It should be the 6th, yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is the 6th. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. And once again, I'm glad to see the newly elected board members back again. Thank you.
Thank you.
I know it's a huge effort to go through the electoral process, and I think you learn stuff. You learn a lot talking to people, and then it's nice when you ends up that people feel like you're doing a good job, which I agree. So, all right. Until 2 weeks from now, good night.